I walked into the backyard barbecue I wasn't invited to and froze. My brother Shane stood by the grill, wine glass raised, surrounded by aunts and uncles who used to hug me at Christmas. His voice carried over the music. Callie lost everything. Dad finally saw through her act. She's not family anymore. Cut off completely. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Someone clinked a glass. My cousin Amy looked away when our eyes met. My face burned. My hands shook. I kept walking forward, each step heavy, until I reached the patio table where Shane stood like a king addressing his court. Everyone went silent. Shane turned, his smug smile widening. Didn't think you'd show up. I pulled a thick manila envelope from my bag and dropped it on the table between the potato salad and coleslaw. Looking for this? I asked. His face went white as he recognized the property deed inside. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my revenge story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. My name is Callie Morrison, and until 8 weeks ago, I believe my brother and I were close despite the distance. We grew up in Cedar Falls, 2 kids who shared secrets and summer nights catching fireflies behind our childhood home. Shane was 5 years older, the golden child who could do no wrong. I was the quiet one, the daughter who stayed close to home while Shane chased bigger dreams in Chicago. When Dad had his stroke last year, Shane didn't come home. Not for the hospital visits, not for the rehab appointments, not for the endless nights when Dad couldn't remember where he was or why Mom wasn't there anymore. She'd passed 3 years before, and sometimes Dad still called for her. I quit my marketing job, moved back into my childhood bedroom, and became Dad's full-time caregiver while managing his real estate portfolio remotely. Dad owned 6 rental properties in Cedar Falls, all paid off, all managed carefully over 40 years of hard work. The crown jewel was the lakeside cabin, 15 acres of pristine waterfront that he'd bought for almost nothing in the 80s. It was worth close to $2 million now, and developers called monthly with offers. Dad always refused. That cabin held every good memory we had as a family. Mom's laughter echoing off the water. Shane and I building sandcastles on the private beach. Dad grilling fish we'd caught that morning. When Dad had his stroke, I moved him back to the main house in town where I could watch him constantly. The cabin sat empty except for weekends when I'd take him there, hoping the familiar surroundings might spark something in his fading memory. Those were the days he seemed most like himself. 5 months after the stroke, Shane called. "I'm coming home to help," he announced, his voice cheerful and confident. Relief washed through me. I was drowning in medical bills, insurance paperwork, and the constant weight of keeping Dad safe and comfortable. "That would be amazing," I told him, already imagining sharing the burden I'd carried alone. Shane arrived 3 days later in a rental car, wearing an expensive suit and bringing flowers for Dad. He hugged me tight at the door. "You've done so much, Cal. I'm here now. You can rest." Dad's face lit up when Shane walked in. "There's my boy," he said, clearer than he'd been in weeks. Shane spent that first evening telling stories about his success in Chicago, his consulting business, his downtown apartment. Dad listened like Shane was describing heaven itself. At first, Shane's help felt genuine. He made coffee in the mornings, picked up Dad's prescriptions, and chatted with the home health nurses like he'd been there all along. But small things fell off. He'd interrupt when I tried to explain Dad's medication schedule. He'd suggest I looked tired and should take a break when I was reviewing the rental property finances with Dad. During a visit from Dad's attorney, Mr. Whitmore, Shane answered questions I should have handled. "Callie's been under so much stress," Shane told him smoothly. "Maybe it's time I took over some of these business decisions. Just to lighten her load." Dad nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Shane knows business." My stomach twisted, but I smiled. He was my brother. He was here to help. I pushed down the uneasy feeling growing in my chest. The next week, Shane started arriving at the house early, before I woke up. I'd come downstairs to find him, and Dad already having coffee, reviewing papers I hadn't seen. "Just going over some property stuff," Shane said when I asked. "Nothing you need to worry about." When I tried to join their conversation, Shane would smile and say, "We've got this handled. Why don't you take the morning off? Go get your nails done or something." Dad would nod in agreement. I started noticing how Shane positioned himself between Dad and me during every conversation. How he'd mention to visitors how exhausted I looked. How he'd bring up mistakes I'd supposedly made. Little things Dad couldn't quite remember, but that made him frown with concern. Did Callie forget to pay the water bill last month? Shane asked one morning, knowing I hadn't. The account was overdrawn. I found the email by accident. Dad left his laptop open on the kitchen table, and when I went to close it, I saw Shane's name in the subject line. The message was from Shane to his attorney friend in Chicago. My hands went cold as I read it. Once the amendment is signed, she's out. Focus the trust on me. Dad won't remember the original terms anyway. The lakeside property alone is worth the trip home. I read it 3 times, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it. I took a photo with my shaking hands, then closed the laptop. Shane walked in 2 minutes later, coffee in hand, smiling like nothing was wrong. Morning, sis. Sleep well. I couldn't speak. I just nodded and left the room before he could see my face. My brother wasn't here to help. He was here to steal everything. I tried talking to Dad that afternoon when Shane went out. Dad, I need to tell you something about Shane's plans. But Dad looked confused and tired. Shane's plans? He's helping us, honey. You've been so stressed. Maybe you should rest more. I showed him the email on my phone. He squinted at it, then handed it back. I don't understand computers, Callie. You know that. Shane says you've been paranoid lately. Are you feeling okay? The words hit like a slap. Shane had already poisoned him against me. Every comment about my stress, every suggestion I was overwhelmed, had been building to this moment. Dad didn't believe me. Worse, he was looking at me like I was the problem. I'm fine, Dad, I whispered. Never mind. That night, I called Meredith Chun, an attorney I'd gone to high school with. I need help, I told her. And I need it quietly. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Shane work. He took Dad to lunch with Mr. Whitmore twice. He scheduled meetings with the property manager without telling me. He started sleeping in his old bedroom, saying it made more sense than the hotel. He was moving in, taking over, erasing me piece by piece. I documented everything. I recorded conversations on my phone. I saved every email I could access. Meredith told me to be patient. Let him show his hand completely, she advised. If we move too soon, he'll just regroup. So I played along. I pretended not to notice when Shane accidentally scheduled a property inspection without copying me on the email. I smiled when he told family members I was having a hard time coping. I kept my head down and collected evidence, while my brother systematically destroyed my relationship with our father. The blow came on a Tuesday morning. Shane handed me an envelope at breakfast. What's this? I asked. Dad sat across from us, eating oatmeal, not looking up. Just some paperwork cleaning up the estate plan, Shane said casually. You've been removed as trustee and from the business accounts. Made sense since you're so overwhelmed. This just makes it official. My hands shook as I opened it. Legal documents removing my name from everything. Dad's signature at the bottom, shaky but real. When did he sign this? I demanded. Shane shrugged. Yesterday. With Mr. Whitmore present. All legal. I looked at Dad. Did you know what you were signing? Dad finally looked up, confused. Shane said it was to help you, so you wouldn't be so stressed about money things. I stood up, the chair scraping loud against the floor. I need air. I called Meredith from my car, tears streaming down my face. He did it. I'm completely cut off. She was quiet for a moment. Good. Good. I repeated, confused. Now we can prove he manipulated your father while Dad was mentally compromised. But Callie, there's something you need to know. She paused. I've been doing some digging into your dad's records. 6 weeks ago, before Shane ever came back to Cedar Falls, your father had Mr. Whitmore draft a separate deed. He transferred the lakeside property into your name only. My heart stopped. What? Your father knew his memory was going. He wanted to protect at least one property for you. The deed is recorded at the county office. Shane doesn't know it exists because it happened before he arrived. He thinks the lakeside property is still in the trust. I started laughing and crying at the same time. Dad had protected me after all. The next 3 weeks were torture. Shane strutted around town like he'd won the lottery. He met with developers about selling properties that weren't technically his yet. He took relatives out to expensive dinners, promising he'd take care of everyone once the estate was settled. At Thanksgiving dinner at my Aunt Diane's house, Shane stood up with his wine glass raised. I want to thank everyone for their support during this difficult time. Dad's not who he was, but I'm honored to carry on his legacy. He looked directly at me across the table. Some people wanted to make this about themselves, but family means putting others first. Aunt Diane nodded approvingly. Uncle Paul clapped Shane on the back. I sat silent, fork halfway to my mouth, feeling 50 pairs of eyes on me. No one said a word in my defense. I set down my fork and stood up. "Excuse me," I whispered, and left before dessert. Meredith filed a challenge to Shane's documents the Monday after Thanksgiving. We didn't serve Shane yet. We filed quietly with the probate court, requesting a review of all recent changes to Dad's estate plan based on potential undue influence and mental incapacity. "The key is letting him keep digging," Meredith explained. "Every conversation, every deal he tries to make, every lie he tells just builds our case." So I waited. I went to visit Dad, but Shane was always there, monitoring every interaction. I tried to take Dad for his usual Saturday visit to the lakeside cabin, but Shane said Dad was too tired. "Maybe you should stop visiting so much," Shane suggested. "You're just confusing him." I nodded and left, then drove to the cabin alone. I sat on the dock where Dad and I used to fish, holding the deed that proved the land beneath me was mine. Shane had no idea. I needed to see how far Shane would go. Through a friend of Meredith's, I arranged for a buyer to contact Shane about the lakeside property. The buyer was actually a private investigator named Marcus Webb. He called Shane posing as a developer from Minneapolis interested in the waterfront land. Shane took the bait immediately. "That property's the crown jewel of the estate," Shane bragged over the phone. I listened to the recording later, my stomach churning. 15 acres, pristine waterfront, cleared and ready for development. I'm thinking it's worth $2.5 million, maybe more. Marcus played along. "When can we move forward?" "Soon," Shane promised. "There's just some family drama to clear up first. My sister's been difficult, but I'm handling it." He laughed. "She's about to learn a hard lesson about getting greedy." Marcus got it all on tape. Christmas came and went. I spent it alone with a frozen dinner and a Hallmark movie. Shane hosted a party at Dad's house, our childhood home, and invited everyone we knew except me. I saw the photos on social media. Shane and Dad by the tree, both smiling. Relatives toasting with champagne in our living room. The caption read, "Grateful for family and new beginnings." Someone commented, "Where's Callie?" 3 people responded, "She's not part of things anymore." I screenshot everything and sent it to Meredith. On New Year's Eve, Shane's attorney accidentally CC'd me on an email about finalizing the lakeside property sale. The message included terms, timelines, and Shane's planned distribution of proceeds. None of it included me. I replied to the email with just one line. "You're attempting to sell property that isn't legally yours." Then I attached a copy of the deed. Shane called me 17 times in the next hour. I didn't answer. His attorney called Meredith in a panic. By that evening, Shane was at my apartment door, pounding hard enough to rattle the frame. "Open up, Callie. We need to talk." I opened the door but kept the chain on. Shane looked wild, his hair messy, his eyes red. "What deed are you talking about? What are you trying to pull?" "I'm not pulling anything," I said calmly. "Dad transferred the lakeside property to me 6 weeks before you came home. It's recorded at the county office. You can verify it yourself." Shane's face went purple. "That's impossible. You forged something. You manipulated him while he was sick." "That's rich coming from you," I replied. "Now get off my property, or I'm calling the police." His mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Callie, wait. Let's talk about this. We can work something out." "No," I said. "We can't." I closed the door in his face. The next morning, the extended family group chat exploded. Shane had sent a long message claiming I'd forged documents and launched a baseless legal attack against him. "Callie is trying to steal from our father while he's vulnerable," the message read. "She's manipulated him for months, and now she's making up lies about me. I never wanted it to come to this, but I have to protect Dad from her greed." I watched the messages roll in. Some relatives believed him immediately. Others stayed silent. Then I uploaded the video. It was footage from a recording app I'd installed on Dad's laptop weeks ago. The video showed Shane pressuring Dad to sign papers, promising it would make things easier, while Dad looked confused. It showed Shane literally swapping pages mid-signature when Dad wasn't looking. The group chat went completely silent. Then my Aunt Diane's message appeared. "Shane Morrison, what have you done?" Shane showed up at my apartment again the next day. This time he looked different. Smaller somehow. Defeated. "Kelly, please. Can we just talk?" Against my better judgment, I let him in. He sat on my couch, his head in his hands. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said. "I just needed money. The consulting business failed. I'm drowning in debt. When I found out about Dad's properties, I thought maybe I could fix everything." "By erasing me?" I asked. "By manipulating Dad while he couldn't defend himself." Shane looked up. "You don't understand the pressure I was under. You've always had it easier, staying here in this small town where nothing's expected of you." I laughed bitterly. "I had it easier? I gave up my career to take care of Dad while you lived your life in Chicago. And this is how you repay that sacrifice? By stealing from both of us." 2 months later, Dad passed away quietly in his sleep. The funeral was held at Cedar Falls Baptist Church, where our family had gone since we were kids. Shane gave a eulogy that painted him as the devoted son who'd come home to help in Dad's final months. He cried convincingly. He talked about Dad's love of the lakeside cabin, how it represented everything good about family. I sat in the front pew, silent, watching my brother perform. After the service, people approached me with sad smiles and hollow condolences. No one mentioned the fight over the estate. No one acknowledged what Shane had tried to do. It was easier to pretend everything was normal. At the cemetery, as they lowered Dad's casket into the ground, Mr. Whitmore approached Shane with a manila envelope. "You're being formally notified," he said quietly. "The will contest has been filed. Court date is set for next month." The probate hearing took 4 hours. Meredith presented our evidence methodically. The recorded conversations, the email about cutting me out, the video of Shane manipulating Dad's signatures, testimony from Dad's doctor about his mental capacity during the relevant time frame. Shane's attorney tried to argue that Dad was competent enough to make his own decisions. But when they played the video of Shane swapping document pages while Dad looked confused, even the judge winced. The ruling came down 2 weeks later. All of Shane's changes to the estate plan were void due to undue influence and Dad's diminished capacity. The original trust document stood, splitting most assets between Shane and me equally. But the lakeside property, transferred to me before Shane ever returned, remained solely mine. Shane was also ordered to pay my legal fees. He'd lost almost everything he'd schemed to take. His attorney dropped him the same day the judgment came through. The family fallout was swift and brutal. Aunt Diane called Shane and told him not to contact her again. Uncle Paul, who'd clapped Shane on the back at Thanksgiving, publicly apologized to me at the hardware store. "I should have known better," he said, shame written across his face. "Your brother always was good at selling stories." Cousins who'd attended Shane's Christmas party reached out with awkward messages. "We didn't know the whole situation. We should have asked more questions." I didn't respond to most of them. Their silence when Shane was erasing me had been answer enough. My cousin Amy, who'd looked away at the barbecue, showed up at my apartment with tears in her eyes. "I'm so sorry, Kelly. I was a coward." I hugged her because we'd been close once, but something had broken that couldn't be fully repaired. Trust, once shattered, leaves scars even when forgiven. Shane sent one final text message, 6 weeks after the judgment. "We're still family. We could split the lakeside property and both walk away with something. Neither of us has to be the bad guy here." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed my response. "You made yourself the bad guy when you tried to erase me from my own family. You manipulated our dying father, lied to everyone we know, and tried to steal what he wanted me to have. I'm not splitting anything with you. What's mine is mine because Dad chose to protect me from exactly what you did. Maybe spend some time thinking about why he felt he needed to." I blocked his number after sending it. 3 days later, I heard through Aunt Diane that Shane had moved back to Chicago. His consulting business was permanently closed. He was working retail to pay off debts. I felt nothing when I heard it. The barbecue happened 4 months after the funeral. I wasn't invited, but Amy called to warn me. Shane's telling everyone you manipulated Dad. That you stole from the family. He's playing victim again. I thanked her and hung up. Then I drove to Uncle Paul's house where the gathering was being held. I walked through the side gate into the backyard, my heart pounding but my head clear. I heard Shane's voice before I saw him. Kelly lost everything. Dad finally saw through her act. She's not family anymore. Cut off completely. I kept walking until I reached the patio table. Everyone turned. The silence was deafening. Shane's face went from smug to panicked in seconds. I pulled out the property deed from my bag and dropped it on the table. This is what you wanted, right? I asked. The lakeside property you tried to sell out from under me? I looked around at the crowd. This land has been mine for over a year. Dad made sure of it before Shane ever came home. I left the barbecue without waiting for reactions. I didn't need to see Shane's face crumble or hear his excuses. I'd said what needed to be said. The truth was out there now, undeniable, public. I drove straight to the lakeside cabin and parked in the gravel driveway. The sun was setting over the water, painting everything gold and purple. I walked down to the dock where Dad and I used to sit for hours, fishing poles in hand, talking about nothing and everything. I decided to keep the cabin exactly as it was. No selling to developers, no subdividing the land. This place held every good memory I had of my family before greed poisoned it. I'd host gatherings here eventually, but only for people who'd stood by me or who'd found the courage to apologize and mean it. The cabin would become what it was always meant to be, a place of joy and belonging, but on my terms now. People ask me sometimes if I regret how things ended with Shane. The honest answer is no. I didn't destroy my brother. I simply stopped protecting him from the consequences of his own choices. He tried to erase me from my family, steal my inheritance, and convince everyone I was the villain in a story where he played hero. But the truth has a way of surfacing no matter how deep you try to bury it. Dad knew Shane better than I'd realized. That's why he protected the lakeside property, why he transferred it to me before his memory faded completely. He knew Shane would come home eventually, and he knew what would happen when he did. I miss Dad every single day. I miss the man he was before the stroke, when his mind was sharp and his laugh was loud. Sometimes I sit on the dock at sunset and talk to him like he's still here. I tell him about the cabin renovations, about the family I'm building from people who choose to stay, about the quiet kind of peace that comes from knowing you don't owe anything to people who try to take everything. Sometimes the best revenge is just surviving while they fall apart. Sometimes it's building something beautiful from the ashes they left behind. My brother told everyone I was cut off, but I showed up anyway, deed in hand, and watched his lies burn down around him. That's not revenge. That's just justice finally finding its way home. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What does family mean to you? Please share below and subscribe to this channel for more stories like mine.